there's an interview session now. Can you put your hands up if you took a taxi to the event again today? Okay. Put your hands down if you. Put your hands up if you booked your taxi with your smartphone. Anybody book their taxi with their smartphone? Okay. Hands up if you booked your taxi from Didi. Quite a lot of hands. Okay. The reason I ask that question is because we have Stephen from Didi here, who's joining us for this interview. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so let's start off with a question that maybe some people in the audience are thinking about. So there are a couple of big companies in China that are offering taxi services on their phone. One of them is Didi, one of them is Uber. What is it about Didi that is different to Uber in China?
Sure. When you think about Didi, it's actually completely different from any of the competitors we have globally. First of all, we are a company that targets to solve the problems of the whole 800 million people that live in cities. We don't want to create a product that only solves, say, 15% of the population. So we want to make the product reasonable enough, efficient enough, comfortable enough for people from different backgrounds, different affordabilities. That's why we have multiple business lines, and we are the ultimate platform for consumer transportation.
Okay, so you are, in most people's mind, you're a taxi company, but you also offer some different services too, right? So I can order a bus, or I can book a bus. I can book someone to take my car back from the bar if I want to go for a drink. Maybe you can talk about some of the services that you have and what the reasons for launching those services is.
Sure. Actually, we're no longer a taxi app. On the app, the biggest service we're having now is the private car. On a daily basis now, we complete over 4 million rides just for private car. And then we have taxi, we have another product called Hitch, and then we have bus, and we have chauffeur services, as you mentioned. So for example, for private car, it's the typical P2P ride sharing. But we have lots of innovation around that. We now have the carpool service available in Beijing. And for Hitch, it's a product that has a lot of social elements. We want people to drive not only to make money by picking up passengers, we want them to meet people, interesting people, make friends. So there are a lot of social elements associated with the Hitch product.
Okay, that's interesting. So obviously, as a company, when the company started out, you guys were offering taxi services. So I could order a normal Beijing taxi inside the app. And now that you're offering peer-to-peer and other services, perhaps they can compete with the taxis that you first worked with. So how do you maintain a service that on one hand you work with taxi drivers, on the other hand you work with peer-to-peer and other forms of transport that perhaps can compete with those taxi drivers? How do you manage that challenge in those two areas?
When you look at the different lines of business we have, they don't actually compete internally with each other. The key purpose of the products we're having, including the P2P ride sharing, including Hitch, they're there to replace car ownership. They're there for the people who find it inconvenient to drive themselves. They're there for people who want to buy a car but they couldn't because of the restriction of car plates in Beijing, Shanghai. So we think we bring more people onto the network instead of just competing with taxi. And also, we spend a lot of resources, a lot of time, a big team working on the taxi product. We work with the taxi industry, help them to evolve, and our product actually helps taxi drivers to increase their daily income by 10 to 20% because of the efficiency we can bring to them by the technology we have.
Okay. In terms of tech, isn't it easy? Like, so I'm a person who wants to get a taxi. I have my phone. I say like, "Hey, I'm here. Come pick me up." There's a driver who's driving around. And he's like, "I'm free." Oh, okay, I'll go pick him up. I mean, that should be easy, right? How hard can that be?
When you're processing millions of demands and you have millions of supplies at the same time, that actually is not easy. For example, when you have, say, 50,000 or even 500,000 requests coming out simultaneously within a very small areas, and you have 20,000 cars within that area, to perfectly match the supply with the demand within 20 seconds, 30 seconds, that requires a perfect algorithm plus a lot of training of the system itself. And a lot of the advanced technology we have, which will bring down the cost of transportation, also requires a lot of technology and data processing. So on a daily basis, we process more data than any of the map apps out there. I can actually give a number. We process over 50 terabytes of data every day. The position of the cars, the position of the passengers, and matching them actually requires a very strong arm in terms of the deep learning system.
So do you think it's more challenging to do the service in, say, a city like Beijing than in San Francisco or other places? And why?
Yes, of course it does. Because Beijing has 20 million people, and San Francisco, that town alone, only has 800,000 probably, right? So when you compare the difficulty level of this population density with that, it's like comparing calculus with algebra. So I think we're lucky because we are in the most populous cities in the world. And also the traffic system here is also more complicated. You have the rings, you have the highways, you have so many one-ways, right? When you try to calculate distance, when you try to calculate exactly how much time does the car needs to travel from A to B, all the traffic creates so much complexity to the system. So we've been solving calculus problems every day, right? Compared to many of other companies which are only dealing with algebra problems.
Okay, so talking about other companies who are dealing with these problems, interestingly, obviously you guys have raised quite a lot of money from investors, and you've used some of that to invest yourselves in other companies too. That's quite interesting because the companies that you've invested in are in India, Southeast Asia, and in the US too. Can you explain why are you putting money into these companies? Is it a case of investing in them with a view to buying them in the future and expanding, or is it about having a common enemy? What's the reason behind this?
There are two fundamental reasons that we made investments. The first one is we want to make our product available for people that travels around the world. For example, all the passengers in China now will use Didi. When you go to Southeast Asia, the software doesn't work, right? But if we work with Grab Taxi, when they turn on Didi in Southeast Asia, they can hail a car through the network. And the second reason that we made investment is we always believe that the transportation services, the ride-sharing service is local business. You have to understand the local passenger, local driver, the local regulators to make it well. So we believe local champions, all of the local champions will win the market. And we want to build an alliance that for the local companies can share experiences and share knowledge with each other to bring the technology level, to bring operations or the expertise to the same level.
Okay, so it's about sharing the experiences between the companies. So you're not thinking about buying these companies?
That's
okay, interesting. So what about the kind of numbers that you guys have? Because I've seen some incredible stats that you've been releasing on an ongoing basis. Can you tell us any information about the volume of transactions or number of users that you have at the moment?
Sure. We've been actually growing at a very, very fast speed in the past few months. Now we are completing over 7 million rides per day on a daily basis in China. Out of the 7 million, private car accounts for about 4 million, taxi accounts for about 2 million, and we have a product that's called Hitch, which completes about 1 million rides a day.
Okay, so what can you tell us about those products in a bit more detail? Because I mean, I guess to the untrained eye, they all seem like taxi apps. Like how are they different, and which ones are the ones that are going fastest?
Sure. When you think about the differentiation between these products, taxi is a service that's been there for decades. But for private car, it's a product that we created about 14 months ago. So within the private car, you have two different products. One is called Didi Black, which is the higher-end limo type of cars and services. And you also have Didi Express, which is much affordable P2P ride sharing with mobile cars. So these products perfectly lays out in terms of difference in terms of services and prices and functions. And Hitch is a very special product that's probably only available in China. That's for the white collars, that's for normal people who drive every day, but we give them a function that if they let us know their destination, we will dispatch a passenger to them, which is on the way to his work.
So it's like a way if I'm already going to work, then someone else can help me pay my fuel, or is that kind of the reason behind it?
There are two elements in there. If you let us know when and where you're going, we are going to give you a passenger so you can pick him up on his way. So he can be your friend. He can also pay you a small fee that covers your parking fees or your fuel cost. But most importantly, we make it very social. So for example, for the private car we are having, the passenger rates the driver by stars, 4-star, 5-star. But for a hitch, they will input qualitative comments. So this guy is very nice, he's handsome and he's sweet, he likes football, yes, exactly. In the future, we're going to match people based on their interests. So we're going to match a driver who likes football with a football fan. So, Beijing, the traffic, as you may see, sometimes it takes you an hour, 2 hours to drive. When you have a friend that shares the same interest, you can talk about it along the way.
So you're a taxi company and a social network as well, bring people together.
That's what innovation we're trying to create.
Okay, interesting. So I guess one of the things that we read about a lot in terms of taxi app companies in China is the regulations in China can vary immensely. Obviously, China is a huge country with many different cities, many huge cities. Can you just give us an insight into how you work with these regulators across China?
Sure. We know their problems, right? The problem is to make everybody available in terms of transportation comfortably. So we work with taxi companies, we work with the government. Our taxi division, the whole business, focus on improving the efficiency of taxi drivers, improving their hourly income. That's the sole mission of our division. So when we help them, it also helps the government. And also the whole system itself, it solves a lot of social issues. When you think about a hitch, when you think about a carpool for private cars, it reduces the total number of cars that's on the street when you put more people into one cars. And the bus system is a perfect complementary to the public transportation network out there, which will help people to transport smoothly. So all these are helping the government in terms of solving the overall transportation and solving the congestions, solving all the pollution, traffic issues out there.
Is there a single government agency that you can work with, or do you have to work with every single city at a certain level?
Right. We work with different parties in terms of different levels in different cities. For example, in Shanghai, as you may know, our private car business is now perfectly in Shanghai. So in that city, we work with the government in terms of multiple layers. We both work with the government to give a solution of overall transportation, and we also work with the leading taxi companies in the city. And very soon, you're going to see these innovations in the next few months. And also, we are working with them to create a more stable system, more safe network in terms of private car and services. So it can vary from city to city.
Okay, and so I think in terms of the money that you've raised, I know certainly you've raised, I think, 2 or 3 billion US dollars. How are you spending that? Like, where's that going?
Right. Thanks to the scale we are having, as you may know, for the transportation network, the biggest important competence of the network is the scale. The bigger scale you have, the lower cost curve you can get to. So we are running very efficiently. We're only spending, say, a quarter where our competitors are spending here because of the skill benefits we have.
How much are you spending? Can you say exactly?
I probably cannot talk about that at this moment.
How much is Uber's? Can you say how much Uber is spending?
I cannot.
Okay.
But I can tell you that more and more money will be spent on innovation. We're building a world-leading big data group here. We have the world-leading scientists here. We think the deep learning capabilities of the company is getting very close to the best companies in the world. So we want to bring more talent here, and we want to crack the toughest problem in terms of consumer transportation in the world.
So does that mean that you're hiring staff from overseas to the US and other places?
We're hiring talents from all parts of the world. Anyone who has the aspiration to solve the toughest problem in overall transportation network are welcome to here.
Because I know that the taxi app companies, they open offices outside of the actual country that they're serving. Do you have any plans to open offices elsewhere?
We potentially will have a plan.
Would that be like an R&D center maybe in the US, perhaps?
I can only say perhaps.
Okay, no problem. Okay. So as you mentioned, you've raised money from a lot of different investors. What kind of exit do you think that those people are looking for? How do you see that? What kind of exit do you think that Didi is going to have at some point?
There will be potentially an IPO, but I don't think it will be anytime imminent. But ultimately, there potentially will be one.
At this point, can you say if you would be doing that IPO in the US or in China or any other places?
That is too early to tell at the moment.
Okay. What's the biggest tech challenge that you guys have at this point? Like, what are the things that keep you up at night?
These problems doesn't keep me up, it keeps us excited because we know that we are cracking the problems that's not that typical elsewhere in the world. When you think about a city like Beijing, the population density here, the sheer quantity of demand and supply, and how complex the road systems are, all of these brings difficulty and challenges to the problem. But when you solve them, you can solve any other problems in the world in terms of transportation. I can actually give you a number that we have never disclosed before. We recently launched a carpool service here in Beijing. Carpool meaning for private car, for Didi Express, Didi Black. It's only available on Didi Express at the moment. When you hail Didi Express, you have an option to share the ride with somebody else, and you get 70% fare. So you have 30% off if you share the ride. So after about 4 or 5 weeks launching, now we have 30% of the Didi Express rides completed in a sharing mode, in a carpool mode. And actually, it's not easy to do. When you think about it, the key elements that you need to determine whether two rides, two passengers can be matched, can share a ride, you need to know exactly how much time the driver needs to get from A to B, right? But if you only get the physical distance between passenger A and passenger B, it doesn't completely solve the problem. Because the passenger A may be on a highway and the exit is 5 miles away, and maybe the traffic is so jammed that the driver needs a lot more time to get there. Maybe there's only one way and he has to go around the town to get to passenger B. So you need to know exactly the condition of the traffic, and you also need to know the roadmap so well enough to get the accurate time. And if you don't do it right, the consumer will find it takes forever for two passengers to share a ride. So there is so much calculation behind it, and what makes it more difficult is you have to do all of the calculation simultaneously in a few seconds.
Interesting. So can we talk about the bus service that you guys have? This is really interesting to me. So I feel like this is maybe the future. We talk about automated cars, cars that they can just drive by themselves. But I think the idea of 40 or 50 people in the same vehicle is where it's going. What is the service like right now, and what kind of plans do you have for it?
Yeah, so when we think about the bus service, we think of it as the ultimate formation of carpool. For the carpool we're now having is we fit 2 to 3 people into a 4-seater, so the cost can come down. But if one day we can fit 50 people into a big bus and they share the same starting point, share the same destination, we can make the cost come down much further. So in the future, we're thinking about creating routes that's available for people, and they're going to have a very comfortable service at a very low cost. So right now, we mainly focus on the commuting demands from users. Daily commuting in the evening, in the morning, from home to workplace. But we have already solved a lot of problems. For example, we create routes that if the route doesn't exist, people will have to exchange 2 to 3 public buses, or they have to walk 2 to 3 miles to a bus station, to a subway station. It will take them a lot more time, but we give them one stop at a very reasonable cost.
So basically, if I'm near the route, then I can ask the bus to come past, and it's right to me?
Right now, the service is not still on demand, so there are fixed routes we create. And when you turn on the app, you're going to see all the available routes around you. So you'll see whether it's fixed or demand or not. And you can purchase a ticket on the app, and you just come to the station when the bus. It's going to tell you when the bus will leave. So if you come before the bus will leave, you can get on the bus if you if you buy tickets with your app.
Okay, and so in the future it could be on demand. Is that possible? You think?
It is definitely possible. And in the future, you can have potentially different sizes of the buses. You can have a mini bus, you can have big buses, you can have even 7, 8 seaters. As long as you can fit multiple people into one vehicle and they share the same destination, it will drive down the cost.
Okay. So Uber's been pretty public about its plans for automating the vehicles, right, for self-driving cars. What is Didi's take on that? Do you have plans to do that in the future?
We think this potentially will be the trend, but we believe the technology itself will not be the ultimate Scott's value. When you think about the companies that are doing autonomous driving globally, you can name tons of them. Say Google, say Apple, Tesla. They're not even Mercedes, even BMW. All of these companies are looking at. So we believe technology will be available in multiple ways in the future, but we'll definitely work on that, and we also will invest in that as well.
Okay. So we talked about the different kinds of transportation services that you have. Does Didi have any plans to offer other services too, like maybe delivery services or food delivery? Like, is that on your plan for the future?
So the core competence and technology of the network is how to carry people or things from A to B at the lowest cost possible in the most efficient way. Right? So anything is possible if that fits into the overall brand design of the system. We are already having a big innovation here that's out of getting around the town. We recently launched a new service that's only available in China, which is the test drive. When you think about how people do test drive previously, you always have to take a cab or drive yourself to the store, and you wait in line, right, and get on a car to drive for 30 minutes, and you have to drive home with your own cars. So we offered a whole new experience in terms of test drive. We work with Mercedes, where you can request a test drive through the app, and there will be a driver in the car come to you. So you exchange seats. You put yourself into the driving seat, and you can test drive for 30 minutes, an hour, and you can do test drive on your way to work.
And is that free?
It is not free, we charge.
So some of the other taxi companies work with startup founders. There are a lot of founders in the audience here, probably. How do you work with startups in China, and what kind of stuff could founders here do with you?
You know, the overall transportation network has a very long value chain, from the manufacturing of cars, from the dealings of cars, from maintenance, from insurance, from a lot of, there are so many elements in the network. So we have open arms, and we work with every company that brings value to the value chain, which can drive down the cost, which can improve the efficiency. And we also do a lot of sharing. Our founder goes to a lot of events, sharing his experiences. It is not easy to do startups in China, so we are very open.
Okay, interesting. What kind of experiences have you found doing the service in China? Is there any advice, any things that you've been to that you think that some of the founders in the audience would be interested in?
So our own experience tells us what's most important here is to know your users. So for us, it is to know the drivers and to know the passengers better than anybody else. Any innovation always has to be a consumer-driven innovation. Now we have 7 different business lines on the app, and we also have another corporate system, corporate product. If you create a product that user doesn't need, even if you have very advanced technology, even if you have the best algorithm, it still doesn't work. So we spend so much time, and we hire all the top talents, just focus on one thing, is understanding your users.
Okay. So you mentioned that you already have 7 different products. What can we expect to come next? Do you have plans for 8, 9, 10?
I cannot comment that at the moment, but I would say, the 7 products we have can already solve a vast majority of the transportation issues out there.
And in terms of when you're thinking about new products to launch, where does the ideas come from? Do you look overseas and see what's working in the US and think about how you can localize that in China, or do you look at the Chinese cities and you find problems to solve there? Maybe you can explain some of the thinking that goes into that.
Sure, it's definitely the second one. So as you know, we started with taxi, and then we have the private car services, and gradually we find that many of the drivers, despite they have a car, they're not willing to drive on the network because they don't want to become a service provider. They want to drive just to share a ride, just to make friends. So based on that, we create a product which is Hitch, which make the ride more fun and social. And for the bus, we see demands from actually our own employees and employees out there that are having difficulties everyday commuting, but they cannot afford a hitch ride or private car ride or taxi. So based on the demand, we created this bus services. And chauffeur is another service where if you drink, if you drive, and you can call in a driver that drives you and your car home. These are all based on the observation of the users that we have on the network. So the beauty of the business is, given we have so many users, right? We observe their preferences, we understand them, we make a lot of conversation with them, and most of the innovation comes out from the conversation with the users.
Okay. So I've lived in Asia for a while, and I've noticed something that's interesting about cars here. So it's very aspirational to own a car, right? So it's like I have a good job, or my business is going really, really well. I want to kind of show off my success, so I buy a nice car, and everyone can see, I'm doing pretty good for myself. It seems to me like in the future, where we're going with the taxi sharing apps, there's going to be far fewer cars out there. So how do you think, is owning a car still aspirational, and do you think that that's going to change going forward?
I believe that will definitely change because first, when you think about the overall transportation network here, the city no longer can hold more cars. Like in Beijing, like Shanghai, car plates are all restricted, and they grow at about low single digit, 3 to 4% a year because of the restriction. And on the other hand, all the young generation that were born in the 90s, in 2000, they care a lot less about possessing. Right? They care about the quality of living. They're much more open to new culture, so we believe this trend will definitely change.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think we're out of time now. So thank you so much, Stephen.